He snapped his fingers at Judge Judy. "Hey, sweetheart, bring me some respect with that gavel." Gasps tore through the courtroom like shrapnel. Cameras froze. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened. The senator's son leaned back, grinning, soaking in his own arrogance. For 3 full seconds, Judy said nothing. Then she stood in slow, deliberate, and the smirk on his face began to die. What happened next, no one in that room will ever forget. The courtroom air thickened like smoke, not from chaos but from disbelief. The senator's son sat at the defendant's table, leaning back as though the world were built for his comfort. His fingers tapped against the desk, a rhythm of entitlement that filled every quiet second. Cameras from the courtroom's broadcast crew caught everything: the smirk, the posture, the challenge. Judge Judy entered with her usual stride, calm, sharp, unstoppable. The room rose to its feet, but Ethan Reeves stayed seated for half a second too long. It wasn't defiance, it was calculation. He wanted people to see it. He wanted her to see it. The smirk didn't move from his face as she adjusted her robe and sat down behind the bench. "You think that's funny?" Judy asked without looking up. Ethan's smile widened. "Just waiting for the show to start, Your Honor." A ripple of gasps and muffled laughter spread through the courtroom. His tone wasn't nervous, and it was deliberate. Somewhere in the gallery, his father, Senator Reeves, sat expressionless. A man used to watching his money and influence clean up arrogance like this. Judge Judy's gavel struck once. Not loud, precise, the sound landed like a warning. "The show has started, and you are standing in it." The plaintiff, Maria Holloway, sat across the aisle, her hands gripping a stack of documents so tightly the edges bent. She was quiet, almost invisible, the kind of woman arrogance forgets until it's too late. Her eyes followed Ethan with something heavier than anger: recognition. Judy's gaze cut to Maria. "Ms. Holloway, you filed this claim personally." Maria nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, She paused, steadying her breath. "He defamed me, destroyed my reputation. I lost my job, my savings, and my name." Ethan rolled his eyes loud enough for the cameras to catch the motion. "Oh, come on. She was fired because she couldn't handle pressure. This is politics, not kindergarten." Judy leaned forward, elbows on the bench, voice lowering. "And yet here you are." "In kindergarten!" Laughter erupted from the back row but died quickly under Judy's next glare. Ethan blinked, his grin flickering for the first time. Not gone, but nervous now, like a candle fighting wind. Maria looked down at the papers in her lap. Her evidence, her truth, her last chance to reclaim what arrogance had taken. Judy noticed the trembling in her hands. "Do not worry, Ms. Holloway, the truth always has better lawyers," Ethan scoffed. "If you say so, sweetheart, that word." It snapped through the air like glass breaking. Even the bailiff shifted, ready for impact. Judy didn't move. She only spoke, each syllable measured and surgical. "Mr. Reeves, in this courtroom, respect is not optional." The smirk returned, smaller but stubborn. "Guess we'll see who earns it." The gavel hit again, louder this time, final echoing like thunder trapped in oak. Judge Judy leaned back. "We will, and we'll start by seeing what you've been hiding." The gavel's echo still floated in the air when Judge Judy looked up from the bench. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was charged. Ethan Reeves straightened his tie like a man rehearsing control, but the tremor in his jaw betrayed him. "Ms. Holloway," Judy said calmly, "tell the court what happened." Maria Holloway rose slowly. Every movement was careful, deliberate, as if the floor itself might punish her for stepping wrong. The camera panned to her, a quiet woman in her 40s, plain navy blazer, hair pulled back in a way that spoke of exhaustion, not vanity. Her eyes were tired but not defeated. She held a small folder to her chest like armor. "I worked for the Reeves campaign," she began softly. "Public relations. My job was to handle media contacts, press coverage, damage control." Ethan scoffed, loud enough for his mic to pick it up. "Damage control. Yeah, we saw how that went." Judy didn't even look at him. "You'll get your turn, Mr. Reeves. Right now I'm listening to the woman you tried to silence." Maria's throat tightened, but she continued. "When I discovered discrepancies in the campaign's charity accounts, I raised concerns. Ethan called me into his office. Said I was—" She hesitated, her voice trembling. "Overreacting for someone who should be grateful to be in the room." A low murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judy's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. The way a blade catches light. What happened next? Maria swallowed hard. The next morning, my photo was online. They called me a thief, said I stole donor money. I lost my job, my friends, my home. Ethan leaned forward, smirking. You leaked internal data, Maria. You wanted attention. You got it. Judy raised her hand. Silence snapped instantly. And yet, she said, her voice calm but cutting, the woman you humiliated still stands here. That takes more strength than your smirk will ever have. For a moment, Ethan's grin faltered. His lawyer whispered something, but he waved him off, pretending control. Maria opened her folder. The papers trembled in her hands, but her voice grew steadier. I sent myself a backup of every file before they fired me. I wanted to protect myself. Ethan's laughter broke the silence. Oh, please, you? With evidence? If you had anything real, we wouldn't be here. The sound of his arrogance filled the room, until Maria lifted a small silver flash drive from her folder. It caught the light like a weapon. The entire courtroom seemed to inhale at once. I mailed a copy of this to myself the night before I was fired, she said. Postmarked and sealed. Ethan froze just for a second, then forced a laugh that didn't land. Judge Judy's voice dropped, slow and deliberate. Mr. Reeves' arrogance might talk loud, but proof whispers louder. Maria's hands trembled, but her gaze never left his. The tension was a living thing now, crawling through every row, every lens, every breath. Bailiff, Judy said without breaking eye contact with Ethan, bring me that drive. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the screen flickered to life. Static hummed through the speakers. Then a voice, his voice, cut through the noise. The static hissed through the courtroom speakers like a storm trying to find its shape. Everyone leaned in. The lights dimmed, and for the first time since the hearing began, Ethan Reeves wasn't smiling. Then his voice filled the room. She's done. Tell the media she stole it. I don't care how, just make it sound believable. A sharp intake of breath cut through the silence. Maria flinched, hearing the same cruelty that had haunted her for months. The bailiff glanced at Judge Judy, waiting for instruction, but Judy didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on Ethan, watching not his mouth but his breathing. Ethan chuckled nervously. That could be anyone. Deepfakes, AI, whatever. You can't just... Quiet, Judy said softly. The tone wasn't loud, but it froze him mid-word. The audio continued. And if she talks to the press again, call the donors. She won't work in this town again. Every word struck like a hammer. Ethan's laughter died. His jaw set tight, a muscle twitching beneath his skin. The camera zoomed in on his face, a man trying to swallow his own reflection. Judy finally looked away from the screen. Mr. Reeves, she said, voice even, is that or is that not your voice? He leaned back, trying to recover swagger. I've done media training, Judge. Everyone here's heard me talk on camera. Anyone could splice... Answer the question. He hesitated. It sounds like me, but it is you, Judy finished. Same tone, same arrogance, same language pattern. The gallery murmured again, reporters scribbling, cameras clicking. Even the bailiff's expression softened into disbelief. Judy replayed the clip, just 5 seconds this time. She pointed to the background hum. You hear that? Those aren't studio mics. That's the campaign office. Telephones ringing. Same model used during the election year. Do you want to keep denying or start telling the truth? Ethan swallowed, eyes darting toward his father seated behind him. The senator's face was a portrait of fury, not at the lie but at being caught. Maria stood silently, her hand covering her mouth. Her truth had been buried under mockery and politics, but now it was alive again, echoing through speakers larger than her voice had ever been. Ethan finally spoke. Quieter now. This is out of context. You don't know the full story. Judy tilted her head. Then give it to us. You've had plenty of practice spinning one. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The arrogance that once filled every inch of him seemed to shrink, frame by frame. Judy nodded toward the clerk. Mark the recording as verified evidence. We'll see if context changes facts. As the screen went black, silence fell, the kind that pressed against the walls. Maria's eyes glistened, not from triumph but release. Ethan looked straight into a camera, whispering something no mic caught. But Judy heard it anyway. Regret sounds different when it's public, she said almost to herself. Judy leaned forward, opening a folder with deliberate care. Mr. Reeves, one more thing. Did you or did you not claim this recording never existed? Ethan blinked. Of course I did. Judy's eyes narrowed. Then you won't mind explaining how my office received it directly from your father's staff. The courtroom lights hummed faintly as the revelation sank in. Every camera lens now pointed toward Ethan Reeves, the once smug son who looked for the first time unsure of what to do with his hands. His confidence flickered like bad lighting. Judge Judy didn't look angry. She looked amused. That was worse. You told this court the recording didn't exist, she said evenly. But my clerk received it from your father's communications director. Would you like to correct your statement, Mr. Reeves? Ethan exhaled through his nose, leaning back, searching for arrogance like oxygen. My father handles his affairs. I don't control everything that leaves his office. Judy tapped her pen against the bench, a quiet rhythm that sounded too deliberate. But this wasn't his affair. It was yours. Your voice. Your lie. The air thickened again. Maria sat still, almost afraid to breathe, afraid that if she moved, the truth might vanish. Ethan's lawyer rose. Your Honor, this could be a misunderstanding. The chain of custody. Sit down, Judy said, not even glancing his way. Misunderstanding is when you forget your keys. This is perjury's front porch. Laughter erupted from the back. Ethan turned, glaring at the audience, jaw tightening. His smirk tried to return, but his face couldn't remember how to wear it. Judy looked at him like a surgeon deciding where to cut. So you were recorded threatening a woman's livelihood, and then you lied about the existence of that recording. Do you know what that tells me, Mr. Reeves? He didn't answer. It tells me you're used to people cleaning up your mess before you smell it. A few spectators gasped. Even Maria's breath caught. Ethan's face flushed red and he snapped, You think you can talk to me like that because this is your circus? You don't scare me. Judy leaned forward, eyes level, tone softer than ever. Oh, honey, if you weren't scared, you wouldn't be shouting. The line hit like a slow-motion punch. The audience fell into complete stillness. Ethan blinked twice, mouth half open, but no sound followed. The senator, seated in the gallery, shifted, an imperceptible shake of his head that said, Control yourself. But Ethan couldn't. His voice trembled as he said, You think you know who I am? Judy didn't blink. I know exactly what you are. Entitled, rehearsed, and cracking under the weight of your own story. A flash from a camera cut through the silence. For once, Ethan didn't pose. Maria's gaze moved from Judy to Ethan, watching him shrink inch by inch. For months, he'd made her feel invisible. Now he was the one disappearing under the light. Judy closed the folder in front of her. We'll move forward with the next exhibit. She paused, then added, It was sent directly from your father's office. Marked confidential, family recordings. Ethan's head snapped up. What? She slid the envelope toward the bailiff. Let's see what your father thought was worth hiding. The bailiff approached with the sealed folder, heavy as guilt. As he laid it on the desk, Ethan's father rose from the gallery, voice breaking the silence for the first time. Judge, I need a word in chambers. Judy's reply came like ice. No, Senator. The word you need is truth. The courtroom's air changed. When Senator Reeves stood, it wasn't just a man rising. It was an empire trying to save face. Cameras swung toward him, as though the air itself obeyed his command. His charcoal suit caught the light like polished armor, and for a moment, everyone forgot that this wasn't Capitol Hill. It was Judge Judy's court. Your Honor, the senator began, his voice smooth and heavy, trained for microphones. My son has said things he shouldn't have. I'll handle this matter privately. The recording was never meant for public. Sit down, Senator. The interruption sliced through the room. Judy's voice wasn't loud, but it carried the finality of thunder. He blinked, caught between disbelief and fury. Excuse me. You heard me, Judy said, leaning forward, her eyes razor-sharp behind her glasses. You are not here as a senator. You're here as the father of a defendant who thinks power grants permission. In this courtroom, your title has no jurisdiction. Gasps scattered through the gallery. The senator hesitated, a flicker of humiliation he hadn't felt in years. Slowly he sat, though his glare could have set marble on fire. Ethan looked at his father with a mixture of confusion and desperation. Dad, just tell them it's all enough, his father snapped. You've done enough talking. Judge Judy didn't move. Actually, no. He hasn't done nearly enough of that. He's been performing, she motioned to the bailiff. Open the envelope. The bailiff broke the seal. Inside lay a short stack of printed emails, each stamped with the senator's official letterhead. Judy skimmed the top page, her expression unreadable. Maria clasped her hands, whispering something under her breath. Maybe a prayer, maybe the truth hoping to be heard. Judy began to read aloud. To communications, contain the Holloway situation. Issue payment from discretionary campaign fund. Mark as consulting reimbursement. End quote. The courtroom went silent. Not the polite kind of silence, the heavy one that makes even walls listen. Ethan's mouth fell open. You told me it was handled legally. The senator's jaw tightened. I was supposed to stay quiet, Ethan. That's how these things are managed. Judy raised an eyebrow. Managed? That's a fascinating word for bought. The senator's composure cracked. His hand clenched on the bench in front of him. You don't understand how politics works. Judy's tone turned surgical. Politics? No, Senator. This isn't politics. This is accountability. The part of the system you've spent a career avoiding. The cameras zoomed in. Ethan's face drained of color. Maria's eyes filled with something sharp and alive. Vindication. Judy slid the email toward the clerk. Mark it as Exhibit C, chain of corruption, verified. The senator leaned back, shoulders rigid. Do you realize what you're doing? Yes, Judy said. I'm teaching your son that truth doesn't need permission. The words hit harder than the gavel itself. The senator's silence was the first honest thing he'd offered all day. Judy looked toward Ethan. We'll reconvene after a short recess. Use that time wisely, Mr. Reeves. When we return, arrogance won't be your lawyer. Ethan turned to his father, voice cracking. What do we do now? His father's reply came like a whisper of defeat. Pray the cameras stop rolling. When the recess ended, the courtroom was no longer just a courtroom. It was a stage the world had tuned into. Outside, reporters swarmed like hornets. Inside, every seat was filled. The air vibrated with the low hum of phones recording, pens scratching, hearts waiting. Ethan Reeves walked back in, flanked by his lawyer but shadowed by whispers. His designer suit looked smaller now, his posture less certain. The smirk was still there, or at least he tried to wear it, but it trembled at the corners like confidence stitched too loosely. Judge Judy entered, and the crowd straightened without command. She didn't look at Ethan first. She looked at the audience, at the journalists, at the senator sitting stiff in the front row. I remind everyone, she said slowly, this is not a press event. This is justice, and arrogance is not a camera angle. The words hit like quiet thunder. Cameras lowered slightly, not off but humbler. Judy turned to Maria. Ms. Holloway, thank you for returning. Maria nodded, clutching her folder. Her voice was stronger now. I'm ready, Your Honor. Ethan couldn't help himself. Ready for what? More pity points. Judy's head turned so slowly that the movement itself felt like a warning. Mr. Reeves, you may find that the court of public opinion is cruel, but the court of truth is worse. Choose which one you want to face first. Laughter, then silence. Ethan's bravado faltered again. Maria stepped forward. Your Honor, I didn't come here to destroy him. I came here to reclaim what he stole, my name. Judy studied her for a long, quiet moment. And you're about to get it back. The bailiff handed over a folder. Inside were financial records, lines of payments marked consulting fees, each traced to Maria's name but deposited into accounts she'd never owned. Her breath caught as Judy read them aloud. Ethan's lawyer stammered, There must be a mistake. No, Judy interrupted. There's a pattern. She looked directly at Ethan. You didn't just smear her reputation. You profited from it, the audience murmured, an audible shift in sympathy. The same spectators who'd chuckled at Ethan's confidence now leaned forward, their eyes cold. A reporter whispered, It's over for him, and another murmured, Not yet, this is where she breaks him. Ethan clenched his jaw. You think this matters? My father will— Your father, Judy said, voice sharp, has already failed you. The only person who can save you now is the one you humiliated. Ethan turned toward Maria, but her gaze didn't soften. I warned you once, she said quietly. You laughed. He swallowed. A sound loud enough for the microphones to catch. Judy closed the folder. We'll have these records verified by an independent auditor. If they hold true, your father's influence ends here. The senator's face hardened, fury mixed with fear. For the first time, he wasn't looking at the judge. He was watching his career dissolve, one line item at a time. Judy rose slowly, her gavel resting in her hand. Court will recess again for verification. When we return, we'll see if the money lies as well as you do. The crowd buzzed, flashing lights everywhere. Outside, the world was already deciding who the villain was. If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you stay silent or speak up when power mocks justice? When the gavel struck again, it was no longer just a sound, it was a verdict waiting to happen. The courtroom reassembled like a wound reopening. Gone was the swagger, the playful tension. What returned was a slow burn of reckoning. Ethan Reeves walked in alone this time. No lawyer beside him, no father's shadow behind him. The senator had stayed outside, reportedly on a call with donors. Everyone in the courtroom knew what that meant. Damage control. Judy didn't waste time. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her tone clipped, "our auditors confirmed the payment trail. Every dollar your father's office used to silence Ms. Holloway can be traced back to your campaign card." The words landed like gunfire. Ethan's throat bobbed as he tried to speak. "That's not possible. I didn't authorize—" Judy lifted a paper. "Your signature. Twice. Same date as the defamatory posts against Ms. Holloway." The gallery erupted in murmurs, reporters scribbling, cameras clicking, justice breathing louder now. Ethan turned toward the door, half expecting his father to walk in, to fix everything the way he always did. But the door stayed closed. The senator wasn't coming. Judy leaned back in her chair, eyes never leaving his. "Seems your father's dynasty is crumbling faster than your excuses." For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. Then, voice shaking, he whispered, "You don't understand. My father, he told me it would disappear. He said it was all about optics." Maria's voice cut through the stillness. "Optics don't pay for what you ruined." Her tone wasn't angry, it was steady. And that steadiness made it more devastating. Ethan's composure cracked again. "You think you're better than me? You think one little paycheck makes you a victim?" Judy slammed the gavel once. "Watch your mouth," he froze. His voice shrank. "Everyone wanted something from us. The press, the staff, even people like her." Judy's eyes narrowed. "People like her?" He hesitated, realizing the weight of his own words. The arrogance that once made him magnetic now made him monstrous. Judy stood. "You were given everything and still chose cruelty. That's not inheritance, that's character." The senator's press secretary suddenly burst through the courtroom doors, whispering something urgently to the clerk. Papers exchanged hands. Judy gestured for them to be brought forward. She scanned them briefly, and then looked at Ethan. "Do you know what this is?" He shook his head. "An internal memo from your father's team, dated 2 days ago." She paused. "He's filed for immunity," the audience gasped. Ethan blinked, confusion flashing into horror. What?" Judy set the paper down gently, almost like she pitied him. "Your father isn't protecting you anymore. He's protecting himself." Ethan's eyes darted to the cameras, to the empty seat where his father once sat. His breath hitched, the last illusion of safety dissolving in front of the world. The courtroom fell deathly quiet. Judy's voice softened, not kind but final. "When the truth burns a dynasty, the ashes don't choose sides." Ethan stared blankly at the table, the reality sinking in like ice. Then in a hoarse whisper he asked, "What happens to me now?" Judy's answer was mercilessly calm. "That depends," she said, "on whether you still think you're untouchable." Ethan's question, "What happens to me now?" still echoed when Judge Judy's clerk stepped forward with a new stack of papers. The seal read, "Subpoenaed financial audit, Reeves Foundation, the senator's charity." Ethan's pride, the perfect mask of philanthropy. Judy flipped through the pages with surgical precision. "These," she said, her tone almost casual, "are your father's foundation records for the last 2 years. Donations, expenditures, and one very interesting account." Ethan's head snapped up. "What account?" "The one under your name." Laughter rippled from the back of the courtroom, the nervous kind that comes when power finally bleeds. Judy didn't look up. "The so-called Youth Outreach Fund," she continued, "which somehow managed to finance 2 vacations, 3 luxury watches, and a down payment on your car." Ethan's face went white. "That's impossible." My father oversees— He did, Judy interrupted, her voice rising for the first time all day. Until the federal auditors flagged it last week. Now it's your signature on every withdrawal. The camera zoomed in, a close-up on Ethan's trembling hands. The man who had swaggered into the courtroom was gone, replaced by someone cornered by the truth. Maria leaned forward slightly, her expression unreadable. There was no gloating, just quiet awe at watching arrogance collapse under its own weight. Ethan's voice cracked. You think I stole from a charity? From children. Judy slammed the gavel once, the sound like judgment itself. I don't think— Mr. Reeves, I see. She held up a photo attached to the report. Ethan smiling at a gala, champagne in hand, standing beside a banner that read, Reeves Foundation Youth Drive, building tomorrow. Tell me, Judy said. Lowering the photo slowly, how much of tomorrow did you build with stolen money? The audience gasped. Maria's eyes shimmered, not from joy but vindication. The sound of pens scratching filled the room like falling rain. Ethan rubbed his temples, voice trembling. You don't understand. It wasn't theft, it was reimbursement. My father said it was part of my allowance for campaign work. Allowance? Judy repeated, her voice turning to ice. You don't earn an allowance when the money comes from donors who believed they were feeding children. The senator's aide appeared in the back of the room, face pale, phone in hand. But Judy raised one finger. Not another step. You've done enough damage for one dynasty. The energy in the courtroom shifted, a palpable power flip. The room that had once belonged to Ethan's arrogance now belonged entirely to Judy's silence. Even Ethan felt it. The walls that once bent for his father's name were now closing in. His smirk, his privilege, his confidence, all worthless currency in the court of truth. He slumped into his seat, staring at the evidence, a man watching his last illusion burn. You can't do this, he whispered. You're just— Judy leaned forward, voice low but lethal. Say it. Ethan's lips trembled. You're just— a TV judge. Judy smiled, that cold, devastating smile that made her famous. And yet you're the one being televised. The Reeves Foundation's charity fund, once the symbol of their political goodwill, was now under federal investigation. The senator's immunity request, filed hours earlier, named his son as the primary beneficiary. Judy folded her hands. Mr. Reeves, your father didn't build this mess for you to escape. He built it for you to take the fall. Ethan's voice barely rose above a whisper. He set me up. Judy nodded. And now, Mr. Reeves, we'll see how you act without a script. The courtroom had never felt smaller. The air was heavy, hot, like the oxygen itself was exhausted from holding secrets. Ethan Reeves sat motionless, the subpoena still trembling in his hand. Cameras zoomed in on his face. That once glossy arrogance now cracked wide open. Judge Judy didn't speak right away. Silence had become her weapon, and she wielded it with precision. The senator's son stared at her, chest heaving, the tremor in his breath audible through his mic. Finally, the dam broke. This is a setup, he said, his voice rising raw and jagged. My father, he couldn't do that to me. Judy leaned forward, elbows on the bench. Are you saying your father framed you, Mr. Reeves? Ethan's throat tightened. He looked back toward the gallery, toward the door where his father's aide had once stood. No sign of him, no sign of rescue, only flashing cameras watching him unravel. He swallowed hard. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. That, Judy said quietly, is the first honest thing you've said today. Laughter flickered nervously around the courtroom, but it died when Ethan slammed his hand on the table. The sound echoed. You don't get it. None of you do. Do you have any idea what it's like growing up being his son? Every headline, every handshake, it's all fake. I never had a choice. Maria Holloway watched him, her expression unreadable, part pity, part disbelief. The same man who mocked her now looked like a boy cornered by consequences. Judy's voice was steady, but there was an undertone of something almost human. Choices are easy when they come with privilege. The hard ones start when the privilege ends. Ethan laughed bitterly. You think I wanted this life? My father made me his reflection, his puppet. I did what I was told. You lied, Judy corrected, and you hurt people. You could have stopped at either point. You didn't. Ethan's face twisted, fury overtaking fear. You think you're better than us? You think because you sit up there and lecture people on TV that you understand real power? Judy's tone dropped, almost a whisper. Power isn't what people give you, Mr. Reeves. It's what you do when they finally take it away. The words hit him harder than any gavel ever could. Ethan's composure shattered. He turned toward Maria, voice trembling, desperate now. You think I ruined your life? You think this is justice? My father will bury you again. Both of you. Judy rose, slow and deliberate. No, Mr. Reeves, you're the one being buried. Just not in the way you think. The courtroom went still. The sound of his breathing filled the room, uneven and panicked. His mask, entitlement, ego, control, had completely collapsed. Cameras caught it all. The first tear, the clenched jaw, the realization that he was no longer feared, but pitied. Judge Judy turned to the clerk. Enter into record the senator's immunity filing. Make it clear. His son was listed as the sole conspirator. Ethan's eyes widened. What? Judy met his gaze. He just traded you for his own freedom. The world seemed to tilt. Ethan's hands fell to his lap. He whispered, He sold me out. Judy's reply was almost kind. Then, Mr. Reeves, welcome to the real world, where your father's name can't save you anymore. If your own parents sacrificed you to save themselves, would you still defend them, or finally tell the truth? The cameras kept rolling. Every angle caught Ethan Reeves in freefall. The senator's son, the golden heir of power, stripped of everything but panic. His breath came uneven, sharp and loud enough that it cut through the static hum of the courtroom mics. Judge Judy leaned back, calm as stone, letting the silence humiliate him more than any words could. Ethan wiped his face with his sleeve, leaving streaks of sweat and anger across skin that had never known consequence. The senator's seat remained empty. The empire had abandoned its heir. Finally, Ethan found his voice, or what was left of it. You all think this is justice? This is theater. You want a villain, you got one. Congratulations. The audience flinched at the sudden roar. Maria didn't. She sat still, her eyes steady, as though watching something inevitable finally happen. Judy's gavel struck once, not to silence, but to remind. You made it theater when you decided to play God with someone else's reputation. Now you're watching the closing act. Ethan laughed, high, wild, half a sob. You don't know what it's like to be groomed for perfection. Every dinner, every handshake, every camera flash, all of it fake. My father told me, power isn't about truth. It's about who tells the better lie. He turned toward the empty seat where his father once sat. You said you'd fix it, Dad. You said I'd never lose. Judy's voice softened. He didn't lie. You didn't lose, Ethan. You were never even playing the same game. The air grew still again. Every eye in the room, even the cameras, seemed to hold their breath. Maria stood, unable to stay silent any longer. You ruined my name because your father told you to. And I lost everything. My home, my job, my dignity. Ethan turned toward her, eyes wild. You think I didn't lose too? Look at me. Her reply was quiet. The difference is I never deserved it. Those words landed harder than any verdict could. Ethan's shoulders slumped, his face crumbling under their weight. Judy observed him like a doctor watching a fever break. It's strange, she said softly. You spent so long trying to be seen. Now the whole world sees you, and you can't stand it. Ethan shook his head slowly, as if trying to deny gravity. They'll move on. They always do. A new headline, a new scandal. My father will come back, perhaps, Judy said. But not for you. The bailiff approached, whispering something in her ear. Judy nodded and addressed the room. Breaking news. Senator Reeves has resigned from his committee post. His office is under federal inquiry. The dynasty is done. The words didn't echo. They sank. Ethan lowered his head into his hands, the sound of a man realizing he wasn't the storm, just the debris. Judy's gavel came down one more time, softer than before. Mr. Reeves, arrogance built your image. Truth just tore it down. Ethan lifted his head, eyes red, voice hollow. So that's it? Judy met his gaze. No. That's the beginning of who you really are. The courtroom had gone quiet again, but this time it wasn't tension. It was grief. A dynasty had just died in front of the world, and its heir was still breathing. The cameras didn't dare cut away. Even the murmurs of the crowd were softer now, more human, almost pitying. Ethan Reeves sat motionless, fingers digging into the table. His tie was gone, his shirt wrinkled, his posture slumped. The transformation of arrogance into aftermath. Judge Judy studied him in silence, her gaze not cold this time, but searching. "Mr. Reeves," she said at last, "before we move to judgment, I have one final document entered into record." The clerk handed her a sealed manila envelope. Judy opened it slowly, eyes scanning the contents before setting them down like a surgeon revealing the truth after the operation was done. "This," she said, holding up a single page, "is an internal memo, dated 3 months before Miss Holloway's termination." Maria's eyes narrowed. Ethan didn't move. Judy continued reading, each word measured. "To Senator Reeves. Subject, Holloway situation. Advise termination. She's discovered the false accounts. Suggest character smear to neutralize credibility. Use Ethan for delivery. Plausible deniability ensured." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, camera shutters, stunned whispers. Even the bailiff's jaw dropped slightly before he caught himself. Ethan's eyes went wide, color draining from his face. "No," his voice cracked. "No, that can't be real." "It's verified," Judy said calmly. "Signed by your father's chief of staff. This wasn't your idea, Mr. Reeves. It was your father's." He blinked hard, shaking his head like a man trying to wake from a nightmare. "He told me to fix it. To protect the campaign. He said Maria was going to ruin us." "He used you," Judy interrupted softly. "He didn't trust you. He needed you. You were the shield, the face to take the hit if it ever came to light." Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "He made me his weapon." Maria's eyes filled with tears, not of joy but of realization. Her suffering hadn't come from a single man's cruelty, but from a machine powered by fear and legacy. Ethan had been part of that machine, but also trapped inside it. Judy spoke again, gentler now. "The truth, Mr. Reeves, isn't always about guilt. Sometimes it's about inheritance, the kind that poisons instead of protects." Ethan laughed weakly through the tears that had finally broken free. "He didn't raise a son. He built an alibi. The cameras caught everything. The raw confession, the hollow laugh, the kind of silence that feels like confession too." Judy nodded. "Now you understand, Mr. Reeves. Power doesn't just corrupt the people who hold it. It devours the ones who inherit it." Maria wiped her tears, voice trembling but calm. "And what does it leave behind?" Judy turned to her, eyes heavy. "Truth," she said. "Ugly, honest, and free." Ethan looked up, eyes glassy, voice small. "Then what happens to me now?" Judy set the file aside, her tone firm again. "Now, Mr. Reeves, we find out who you are without your father's shadow. Ethan wasn't the mastermind, he was the tool. The senator orchestrated the entire smear campaign, using his son's arrogance as cover. The truth reframed everything. Ethan's cruelty was real, but it was born from manipulation and legacy." Judy leaned back in her chair. "Before this court rules," she said quietly, "I want to hear from the man you tried to become, not the one your father created." The bailiff opened the side door. Ethan stood slowly, trembling, as the final phase, his confessions, began. For the first time in hours, no one spoke. The courtroom that had witnessed arrogance, betrayal, and truth now sat in reverent silence, the kind that doesn't ask for attention, but demands respect. The storm had passed, but its echo still rattled the walls. Judge Judy lowered the memo, her eyes heavy. The crowd had stopped murmuring. Even the cameras hesitated to move, as if afraid that one sound might disturb what truth had finally unearthed. Ethan Reeves stood motionless, his face ghost pale, eyes hollow. His lips parted once as if to speak, but no sound came. The microphones caught only the faint rhythm of his breathing, shallow, uneven. Maria Holloway looked at him across the aisle, her expression unreadable. The anger that had driven her here had burned itself out, leaving something quieter, compassion's ghost. This was no longer about revenge. It was about what was left after justice. Judy leaned back in her chair, her voice low, almost reflective. "Mr. Reeves' arrogance has a sound. So does guilt. But what you're hearing right now is silence. The kind that comes when truth finally stops lying to itself." Ethan's hands trembled at his sides. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," Judy said. "You've spent your life saying too much. Maybe it's time you listen." He looked toward the empty seat where his father had once sat. There was no movement, no shadow waiting to intervene. The dynasty he'd hidden behind was gone, replaced by the reality that power can vanish quicker than a breath. I tried to be him, Ethan whispered. I thought that's what strength looked like. Judy nodded slowly. Then consider this your education. Strength isn't inherited. It's earned, usually the hard way. Maria exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you even understand what you did to me? Ethan turned to her, and for once there was no deflection, no pride. Just the faintest glimmer of recognition. I do now. And that's worse than not knowing. Judy watched them both, her tone soft but resolute. The two of you are bound by truth. One who fought for it and one who finally faced it. But don't mistake this silence for peace. It's the sound that comes before change. The courtroom's energy shifted. The rage had burned away, leaving the kind of calm that feels sacred. Even the bailiff seemed slower in movement, aware of the gravity lingering in the air. Judy stood, closing the folder in front of her. We'll reconvene shortly for judgment. But before we do, I want you to remember something, Mr. Reeves. He lifted his head, eyes red. What? Judy's tone dropped, each word deliberate. When the applause fades and the cameras shut off, who you are in the silence is who you've always been. No one moved. No one spoke. Maria looked down at her hands, whispering something inaudible. A prayer, maybe. Ethan stared at the floor, finally understanding what it meant to lose everything except awareness. The words Reeves Family Trust Beneficiary Amendment glared from the file like a secret screaming to be heard. Judge Judy turned each page slowly, her expression sharpening with every line. The room was silent, but not empty. It was brimming with tension, with the weight of what might come next. Finally, Judy set the file down. Mr. Reeves, she said, her tone steady, are you aware that your father removed your name from the family trust 3 months ago? Ethan blinked, stunned. What? It appears, she continued, that every cent of your inheritance was redirected to a private account overseas. In his name alone, the gallery gasped. Ethan's face drained of color. He shook his head in disbelief, whispering, No. He wouldn't do that. He said everything he built was for me. Judy's gaze softened, not with sympathy but clarity. Your father didn't build anything for you. He built you into something. A distraction, a story, a shield. Ethan's eyes glistened. The arrogance that once filled them had vanished, leaving only the hollow ache of realization. So that's it? He destroys me and walks away clean. Maria's voice broke the silence, gentle but unwavering. Now you know what it feels like to be erased. Ethan looked at her, tears welling up, his words cracking like dry glass. I thought I was protecting something real. I thought loyalty meant doing what he asked. I didn't even question it. You didn't protect, Judy said, you obeyed. And that's not loyalty, that's blindness. He nodded slowly, the truth finally sinking in. His voice dropped to a whisper. I ruined her life, because I couldn't face ruining his illusion. Maria's eyes shimmered, a storm of empathy and exhaustion behind them. And now? She asked softly. Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze. Now I don't even know who I am without him. Judy folded her hands on the bench, voice low but cutting. Then this is where you start, by owning what you did, not what you were told to do. The cameras zoomed closer. The audience leaned forward. The entire room seemed to pulse around his breathing. Ethan took a deep breath. I defamed Maria Holloway. I lied about her. I let my father's office leak those stories. I signed payments I didn't understand because I didn't care to. I told myself I was helping, but I was just trying to keep his approval. He paused, trembling, then continued. He used me. But I used her. And for that, his voice cracked up, I'm sorry. The apology wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even loud. It was real. Trembling, imperfect, human. Maria's eyes filled. She turned away, not out of anger, but to hide the emotion flooding through her. Judy nodded slowly. That's the first truthful sentence you've spoken in this courtroom. Ethan looked down, whispering, Then maybe that's the first real thing I've ever said in my life. The courtroom stayed still. No applause, no relief, just silence. The kind of silence that feels sacred. The kind born from truth finally being spoken out loud. Judy tapped the file marked Reeves Family Trust. Mr. Reeves, she said, your father's empire was built on lies, but your confession may be what brings it down. She looked to the clerk. Prepare to enter judgment. Then softly, almost to herself, "Sometimes justice doesn't roar, it whispers." The sound of Judge Judy's gavel was different this time. Not sharp, not final, but solemn. It echoed like a bell tolling for everything that had just died: arrogance, legacy, and the illusion of power. The room remained frozen in that fragile stillness, as if no one dared exhale. Ethan Reeves sat slumped at the defendant's table, face hollow, eyes fixed on the polished wood before him. Gone was the confident heir, the smirking politician's son. In his place sat a man finally stripped of image, and for the first time he didn't fight it. Judge Judy spoke softly, but her words carried through every inch of the courtroom. There's something remarkable about watching truth catch up to power. It never runs fast, but it never stops running. No one moved. Even the reporters, once vultures circling scandal, now seemed reverent. "Mr. Reeves," Judy continued, "you wanted to win a performance, but this was never about ratings or cameras or control. It was about character, something your father spent a lifetime avoiding, and you spent a lifetime pretending to have." Ethan swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing deeper than any punishment could. Maria Holloway stood slowly. Her voice was gentle but unwavering. "Your Honor, I'm not here to destroy what's left of him. I just want the truth, for the record, for everyone watching to understand that silence can be as cruel as lies." Judy nodded. "And that's precisely what this judgment will reflect." She lifted the folder labeled Reeves Foundation Defamation Hearing. The faint sound of paper against wood seemed to punctuate every heartbeat in the room. "Ethan Reeves," she said, voice steady and clear, "this court finds you civilly liable for defamation, reputational harm, and misuse of charitable funds. You will pay restitution to Ms. Holloway and issue a public statement of accountability, one written by you, not your father's handlers." Ethan nodded faintly. No argument, no protest. Just a quiet surrender. Judy set the folder down. "But more importantly, I want you to understand this. Punishment doesn't erase guilt. It only gives you a mirror to face it." He looked up, eyes red but steady. "I'll face it," he whispered. Judy leaned forward slightly. "Good. Because in the world you come from, power hides behind lawyers and money hides behind PR, but in here all you have is your reflection." And today, for the first time, you didn't flinch. Maria's eyes softened. She didn't smile, but the tremor in her hands eased. The courtroom seemed to breathe again, the tension fading like smoke after a fire. Ethan turned toward her. "I don't expect forgiveness." Maria shook her head. "Good," she said quietly. "You should earn it, not expect it." Judy's gaze moved between them, her tone final yet reflective. "Justice isn't about revenge, Ms. Holloway, it's about balance." And today the scales finally stopped shaking. She looked toward the audience, the cameras, and the nation silently watching. "Let this be a reminder. Arrogance may buy time, but it never buys peace." The bailiff called for order, but there was none to restore. The courtroom stayed hushed, reverent, watching two people who entered as enemies now standing in the same silence, bound not by hate, but by truth. Judy gathered her papers, her voice softer now. "We're not done yet," she said. "There's one last matter, the final ruling on restitution and the referral to federal ethics investigators." She glanced toward Ethan. "Mr. Reeves, your story doesn't end here. It only ends when you decide what kind of man walks out of this room. Before the verdict is read, tell me this. Can a man like Ethan Reeves ever truly change, or does remorse only matter when the world is watching?" Judge Judy sat silently for a moment, the faint rustle of paper the only sound in the room. The cameras zoomed in, not on her face, but on her hands resting firmly on the bench. The gavel lay beside them, untouched. She didn't need it anymore. The courtroom had already heard judgment, and the weight of truth was louder than any sound she could make. When she finally spoke, her voice carried both steel and sorrow. "This court has witnessed something far greater than arrogance and deceit. It has witnessed consequence. And consequence, Mr. Reeves, is the only teacher that never retires." Ethan sat still, eyes rimmed red, his hands clasped in front of him like a child waiting for punishment. He looked smaller now, not just humbled but human. Judy continued, her tone deliberate, every word a verdict carved in silence. "You will pay damages to Ms. Holloway totaling $200,000, not for the money, but for the acknowledgement. You will issue a written apology within 10 days. You will also make a public statement correcting every falsehood you spread. She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. And a full report of your father's foundation has already been sent to federal ethics investigators. They'll handle the rest. A murmur swept through the room, reporters whispering, pens flying across notepads. But Judy raised her hand and quiet returned instantly. This courtroom isn't about politics, she said softly. It's about humanity. Somewhere along the line you mistook cruelty for strength and silence for control. But strength isn't how loud you talk. It's how much truth you can stand to hear. Ethan nodded slowly, his voice hoarse. I understand. No, Judy replied almost gently. You feel that's better than understanding. That's the beginning. Maria Holloway, seated just a few feet away, exhaled shakily. The months of humiliation, the weight of being branded a liar, all of it began to lift. She didn't smile. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you." But it wasn't to Judy. It was to herself, to the part of her that refused to stay silent. Judy turned to her, nodding once. Ms. Holloway, your courage turned a spectacle into a statement. The world saw what real strength looks like, quiet, relentless, and unbought. Maria's eyes filled. It doesn't feel like victory. Justice rarely does, Judy said. Ethan stood slowly, unprompted. His voice trembled, but his words were steady. Ms. Holloway, I can't undo it, but I'll live with it, all of it. I promise you that. Maria studied him for a long second before replying, Good. That's all I ever wanted, for you to finally live in the truth. The courtroom remained silent as Judy gathered her papers. She didn't smile, but there was something softer in her eyes. Not forgiveness, but understanding. She raised her gavel one last time. This court is adjourned. The final strike echoed through the room, and not as an ending, but as a cleansing. Cameras clicked. Reporters whispered. Yet for once no one moved to chase a quote or a reaction. The moment was too sacred to break. Ethan turned to leave, his shoulders low but his steps sure. The man who had walked in wearing arrogance now left carrying accountability, a heavier but more honest weight. Maria watched him go, then turned toward the door herself. Two stories, once entangled by cruelty, now walking in opposite directions, both free in very different ways. Judge Judy stayed behind, staring at the empty chair where the senator once sat. The sunlight through the high windows caught the dust in the air, turning it gold. She exhaled slowly and whispered, not to the cameras but to the room itself. Arrogance always collapses under truth, and truth never forgets its silence. The camera lingered on the empty courtroom, the flag behind the bench, the empty witness chair, the stillness that follows justice. The sound of the gavel echoed one last time, a heartbeat steady and final.